Testing. All right. What's up, everybody? Happy Monday. Welcome, all ye seeking hopium in these desperate times. Ah, yes. All my bearish alerts going off as we start the stream. Good times. Greatest week last week, right? Things were ugly. The weekly close on Bitcoin, not good. Not good. You know, I was hoping for a sweep here. At least a sweep of this. We got neither of those things. So obviously not looking great. I will say that the weekly close we got definitely decreases my probability of us doing something like this, right? Now, as you guys know, I have been kind of zoomed out on Bitcoin and expecting a bottom, probably somewhere in here. I did bid over the weekend, unsure if just for bounce or for new all-time highs, but I did bid the yearly open, which is around where's our yearly open? Right around here, around 93K-ish. This is kind of the first area where I thought we had the potential to actually truly put in a significant bottom. We took a bit of a FOMO insurance long up here. We got out of that trade, avoided this freaking disaster here. But I've been wondering if we're going to basically sweep out all this liquidity, potentially make a bounce, possibly go to new all-time highs. The other kind of not so good bearish thing that happened last week was the Bitcoin Nasdaq ratio. We lost this low here. And this is not good because the Bitcoin Nasdaq chart just looks like sort of a range high deviation, with the first target probably being the mid-range. And as I said, the mid-range is about 18% down from here. So that's not ideal either. Now, does that mean we have to go down there in a straight line to zero? No. We could do something like this and roll over. A lot of possibilities for how we actually get there. Yes, Marty, I do like the name Marty McLines. That can be your new TA moniker. So Bitcoin still looking objectively lower time frame bearish, still objectively looking like a bad trade relative to the Nasdaq. So that's the bad news there. The good news is I still do think this region probably provides a pretty significant bounce, at least. I would not read too much into the fact that we are dumping immediately today. We did put in the lows over the weekend here, right? So it's pretty common for us to sweep out these weekend lows before going higher. Um, I am encouraged that for the first time in a while, we actually dumped on a Sunday, because normally lately we've been pumping on the Sunday. We get the Monday range, right? Price accumulates in the Monday range, and then we get some fake out over the top of the Monday range, and then we keep dumping. Like, this has basically been the pattern for a while. So I'm hoping that we put in, the Monday range this week, wherever today ends up bottoming out, right? And then I'm hoping at some point during the week we consolidate, we do the opposite. We take out the Monday low back inside, and then maybe this can be the first signs of some sort of relief rally. Now, one of the odd things here has been that, like, Bitcoin has actually been dumping a little harder than the rest of the market. So there's some kind of strange things going on in Bitcoin land. Bitcoin dominance is not really doing what you would expect as of late, which is to be pumping to the moon, right? But like, you can see that Bitcoin dominance is not pumping, right? And if I zoom out a little bit on this chart, let's zoom way out on the Bitcoin dominance chart. Clean this up a little bit so you guys don't get too much of a seizure there looking at this. Okay, so some basic stuff worth noting. We've got like a range here for Bitcoin dominance, right? It's basically a range high, range low. We've been trading in that range. We're getting towards the top of that range. And then we've got this interesting area here of resistance, right? So you can see that price has kind of come up into the mid-range of this supply. And we had a very, very strong reaction from that area, right? This is an area where you would expect a reversal. Like, if this was just some sort of dollar chart we were longing, price is retracing into supply, it takes out some liquidity here, right? And then impulsive move, fair value gap. And you can see there's been a clear loss of the weekly trend, right? So weekly trend is gone. The weekly 50 is gone. The yearly VWAP is gone. We had a little spike up beginning of the month, October 10th, right? This little spike here. But that was immediately rejected. And if we kind of zoom in on the lower time frames, we can see the retest here of this wick area. And what do we get? We get a similar reaction, right? We get these fair value gaps up into the area, and then like strong impulsive reaction away, and then Friday, Thursday, retest of this zone, and another strong move away from that. And then on the 4-hour chart, we can kind of see similar to what we see on the weekly chart. We see this clear loss of trend, underside retest of the moving averages. This is the 200 MA. That's been lost. So it's a very weird spot in the market right now. Like, Bitcoin on the lower time frame, the chart looks like complete AIDS. It looks like it's going to zero. You would expect altcoins are just swiftly dying relative to Bitcoin. But that's clearly not the case here. You can see that Bitcoin dominance is suggesting a reversal in the trend of Bitcoin strength relative to altcoins. And if we pull up others' dominance, which is the ratio of the market coins, dominance of the market coins, excluding the top 10. So some of the more shitters. Again, on like the lower time frame trend here, like you can see this is going up. There is capital flowing into altcoins relative to Bitcoin. And this has all been like rather puzzling to me. There's some strange stuff going on because stocks, I would say, although there has been some shakiness last week, I think still look objectively strong. Bitcoin relative to stocks looks really, really bad. And, this is one of the core reasons I de-risked a lot of my crypto and sold some of my Bitcoin position and moved it into stocks like a month or two ago, because the relative strength just looks like very, very poor. But you would expect as a result of that for altcoins to look worse, and they don't. They look strong relative to Bitcoin. And although the Bitcoin NASDAQ chart, as I've pointed out, looks like a pretty bad, clear, like kind of range high failure, right? And we don't want to be longing stuff at range highs after failures to break out. General principle, right? You would expect if you pulled up the altcoin chart, it would look similar. But like if we pull up like say total 2 divided by the NASDAQ, it's a very different picture. This is a log chart, so it looks a little wacky. Well, I wouldn't say this is like the most amazing chart ever. It looks better than the Bitcoin stocks chart, right? You can see on the very high time frame, right? There's this obvious kind of range deviation failure, right? You can kind of see the respect to these levels here. Like, look at this nice respect to the mid range. We flip that to support, take out the highs, double top, we come down, we sort of deviate, accumulate below the mid range, reclaim, reject, hold as support, higher high, higher low, and we're back at the mid range again. So this level here, although it's a little sketch that it's been tested so many times, is sort of a support level, right? Like there is this is a clear pivot in the market. And like if you were going to be bullish on altcoins relative to NASDAQ, like this actually isn't a particularly terrible place to do it here at the mid-range, which has been kind of tested and confirmed as support multiple times, right? So this chart like makes a much more compelling case for being long coins versus the NASDAQ than it does to be long Bitcoin versus the NASDAQ. Now, I will say in the short term, right, this is some pretty shitty bad momentum. Like there's some caveats to this. Like I don't know that I would be immediately full port leveraging long the entire portfolio, but I don't know. Like I see reasons to look for reversals here, to look for sign. Like right now, I think everybody is kind of the mindset that it's so fucking over and everything's going to zero, and I feel like people have given up. Well, that's potentially true, and stocks could lose levels this week, and then I actually do think there are some coins that will dump quite hard. It's worth asking ourselves, like, okay, like if this is a level we're expecting Bitcoin to actually bounce at the very least, if altcoins are looking strong relative to Bitcoin, if stocks hold current levels, and if some of the headwinds to the market via liquidity and some Fed dynamics and all these other things start to lift, it's worth asking ourselves the question, like, should we start looking to long this junk here? And worth noting that at every altcoin bottom in the history of altcoin bottoms, and again, I don't know if I'm calling a multi-year generational altcoin bottom here. Some of these trades lately have lasted 1 to 3 weeks, right? But they have given like really juicy gains. At the bottom of all of those rallies before they started, nobody thought the coins were going to go up. That's why it was a bottom. The sentiment was just completely in the gutter. Everything looked terrible, hopeless. You know the drill, right? So current state of mind, open to the idea of an altcoin rally. If I want to be in crypto trading, it looks like Bitcoin is a bad thing to do because it looks like you'd rather just be in stock land on the Bitcoin ratio. But some of the altcoin ratios relative to stocks look like they could potentially be attractive if they hold current support levels. And so I think we're in a weird situation right now where we have to ask ourselves if like we're kind of in this very commonly seen late stage crypto market dynamic where Bitcoin kind of tops and then there's a move out to the risk curve in crypto. Now, I don't know that that's going to be exactly the same as it has been in the past where there was just sort of just this general everything went up and there's this like kind of sector rotation and there was no real rhyme or reason to it. I think there's different dynamics in the market today. We've seen a couple areas of the market outperform recently, and they're worth, I think, continuing to pay attention to. The most obvious one is so if we pull up the old spaghetti chart here, I think it's interesting to think about like what we might want to be longing. And this is sort of like the relative performance of the top 100 coins or so since October 10th. And there's one coin I turned off because it was messing up the scale, and that's Zcash, which goes off the screen here. And if I try to fix that, yeah. So like Zcash has just outperformed everything in the market by such a enormous margin since October 10 that it like doesn't even fit on the chart when I try to plot everything here. But taking that off, I've also fucked up this chart because Bitcoin is not being plotted as a percent. There we go. Yeah, so there's your Zcash. So you can see Zcash is like just slaying. Absolutely slaying. This is a coin we longed in the Discord last week. I don't know if you guys have this on your radar. This is Nano. Nano is formerly Ryblocks from 2017 era, blast from the past. There seems to be this kind of like narrative taking hold of I don't know, robot money, as we've kind of talked about. The idea of like micropayments maybe becoming a thing again. Nano is kind of this zero fee payments kind of graph kind of chain, and for whatever reason, it's been sending a bit. So Nano's been strong. This is ICP, Internet Computer. Been one of the strong coins. Next, we've got XMR, Monero, basically another one here in the privacy coin narrative. Monero's been strong. Filecoin. Again, I think this kind of fits into this. There's this like AI AI kind of robot thing, whatever you want to call it, Filecoin fitting in with that. Arweave is not on this spaghetti chart, I think, because it's not big enough, but I think stuff like Arweave has done pretty well. Trump coin is up. So that's fun. Uniswap, been one of the more interesting ones. Uniswap up since the 1010 dump. And we've got a few other coins in here that have basically been up or around break even. Hype is a notable one in here. Bitcoin Cash, for some reason. I mean, I guess we're just doing Bitcoin alternative trades. There's your hype. Right. So there's a few areas of focus, but like the sort of like AI bucket, faster. There's no direction here, but it's not bearish. And it wouldn't shock me if this were to, get a good little pump if confidence in the markets returns. Uniswap has been interesting. One of the more kind of pivotal charts to look at, I think, given the fact that it can kind of tell us so many things about the market. So zooming out, my thoughts, like if I'm trying to think outside the box, I guess, and just try to conceive of non-consensus narratives to try to think of like a trade that might work, right? Because we don't generally make money just like following the herd and believing what everybody else is believing, although it's, comforting to do that and it gives us the illusion of safety. It generally doesn't make for a good trade, right? You have to kind of think about something weird and think about something before the market thinks about that, or get good at charting and look at a million charts and observe on the chart that somebody in the market seems to be buying that narrative before it happens, right? So Uni's interesting to me because it is sort of like the dream of crypto that many of us have dreamed about. The idea that these coins will someday break into the mainstream and do useful things and maybe attract TradFi flows because they start to resemble equities. And we know that TradFi likes equities because TradFi likes discounted future cash flows. It's a big thing. Well, this week we saw, or last week rather, we saw the renewed speculation. I don't know if it's 100% confirmed at this point. Maybe one of you guys could advise me on that. But I think it's effectively a done deal that Uniswap is going to turn on the fee switch and start sharing revenues with token holders. Not only that, I believe they burned like a huge chunk of Uni tokens to rectify for past failures to distribute to the token holders. And I think there's a couple of interesting things about this chart. Maybe I should pull up a chart with more history here. Get the whole picture. Yeah. Okay. So to me, Uniswap is, and I've been saying this for literally 2 or 3 years at this point because the chart hasn't changed much. But what I've been saying for a couple of years is that Uniswap is interesting because it seems like the bottom is like effectively in generationally. Like this is just how many years of sideways? This is 250 odd weeks of sideways, five years of sideways. Even if you discount this bull market here, like you've still had 190 weeks of basing, right? Very similar to what's happening, or what happened prior with like the link chart, which is kind of very famous for it's just like infinite sideways, no pump move before there was finally some life injected into the chart last year. So Uni's cool because it's sort of de-risked in a way. Like it doesn't seem like the price is going to go below like $4 or so. Which is kind of a nice bet because, like, if you're buying altcoins, right, you're buying altcoins for this kind of lotto ticket asymmetric upside. And even here after the pump at like $7.40, like losing 50% on your altcoin investment to potentially make a 10x or 100x or something is like, it's kind of like, who cares? And I feel like one of the reasons that there is a bottom on uni, but it seems like even stuff like Ethereum, right? It's like what the hell is the bottom on the Ethereum chart, right? There there's nothing to anchor to on Ethereum because it is just this like kind of confusing hybrid like commodity slash buyback slash yield thing. I don't think anybody knows how to value it. The returns to the token are sort of recursive in a way, in that the returns are coming back to the token in its own unit ETH, and thus like you can't like really make a neat kind of discounted cash flow model. But that's not the case with something like Uniswap, and I wonder if there is a base on Uniswap because there is this actual real tangible thing for the market to sort of like frame some sort of valuation metric around, because you have at this point years of very nice Lindy in terms of Uniswap basically being like the decentralized transaction layer, right, for swapping assets. And it's not too hard for anybody who knows basic things about equity valuations to look at some of the Uniswap data. Yes, it goes up a lot. Yes, it goes down a lot. It's kind of, very contingent upon bull market, bear market stuff. But like you can make some sort of model there. It's not like trying to value Solana, right? Like, what is the bottom of Solana? How do you value Solana? Like, nobody fucking knows, right? Everybody just comps it against the related thing like ETH, and Solana's value is basically just like, what is ETH's value as some percentage of that, right? So, what I'm sort of wondering is the entire crypto market topped, or has like the Bitcoin narrative kind of topped? Like, did Bitcoin have like a blow off top with like Trump coming into office and strategic reserve and sailors buying all the Bitcoins, and that narrative is totally like blown out and run its course? Like, what exactly is the next thing that kind of is like a new narrative for Bitcoin to latch onto? It would probably have to be some very serious like nation state thing, I think. So I wonder if that Bitcoin narrative is just topped out. But I wonder if that doesn't mean that crypto dies. I just wonder if like a new narrative is forming, or and in some instances I would say has been in the process of forming for some time, because one of the main themes we've seen over the last couple of years is that there's been a really extreme divergence in generalized altcoin performance. Like, these things used to just be just one big giant liquidity battery, and they all kind of went up and down together, and yes, some outperformed, but it was mostly just a risk on, risk off, hot ball of money kind of thing, right? It's not the case anymore, right? Like, if you pull up something like the hype chart and compare it to any meme coin, there's a wild difference there, because hype falls into the same bucket as uni. Like, the market seems to like these coins that are tied to businesses that generate cash flows that seem like they can, right? And this makes sense, because in a world where there's so much money out there, right? Like, they are just still, there's just so much money in the world. Everybody's printing money everywhere. And that money has to go someplace. And that money just mostly goes into stocks, right? And this is the reason why stock valuation multiples keep going higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. It's because like there's like an infinite amount of money. It has to go somewhere. Even if the multiples are like ridiculous, it's like, well, what the hell else are we going to buy? We're going to buy bonds? No. we latched onto gold for a bit. Gold had a tremendous run, huge run up in gold. Is gold going to keep doing that, or does gold need to cool down, right? So all this money has to go somewhere. At a certain point, do like AI valuations just get so crazy? And does smart money start looking in areas like crypto, right? Does it look at stuff like Hype, Uniswap? Are there other things in this category of things that do stuff that's real and generates revenue? Um, is there stuff like Chainlink, like Curve, like Aave? Do these things start catching bids as the attention shifts away from Bitcoin? All of the other stuff in the world just has these like wild valuations, and then some smart money goes like, like I don't know, like Uniswap is doing like $1 trillion a year in swap volume. Talking about making partnerships with like BlackRock and kind of blending into the TradFi world. Is this some sort of new layer for like all asset swaps on planet Earth? Like, do we tokenize everything, and do all these tokenized assets start running through Uniswap rails? And if so, like, what does that look like? What is the current valuation? So it's very easy for me to see like why you could have like a top in Bitcoin, but not a top in this other stuff. And that could take a while to play out, because I think that everything runs kind of there's a lot of these like kind of correlation algos that run. Bitcoin dumps, stock dumps, everybody sells the altcoins. Like these things kind of reflexively happen in the short run, but I wonder, like, over extended periods of time, like, does this stuff like start catching like a real sustainable bid? And to get back to something like Uni, there's already been 2 instances where the market was like, oh my God, fee switch is coming. Oh my God, fee switch is coming. Right, so we hit $17 before, $19 after Trump, kind of the market anticipating that, right? So to me, like this region here, sort of like $17 region, I feel like that's kind of fair value right now, because I feel like what was anticipated before and being priced in the future is now a reality. So although there could be some short-term downside, like all of this stuff on a 1 day, 2 day, 3 day time horizon is like, who the fuck knows what's going to happen with this shit, right? But if I zoom out a little bit and think about something like Uni, like I don't see why it's not trading at 17, 18, $18, right? And then if we just start thinking about this as just a range, right? This is a range low, this is a range high, and we've had infinite basing here, right, at the bottom of the range for quite literally years. Did we base all this way, hold all these lows to like not even test the mid-range? And the mid-range is $23, $24. That's like a 4x from here, basically. 3.5, 4x. I don't know. Do the math, right? And then the question becomes like, do we go to the upper range quarter? That's $34. Do we go back to the range high? That is $45, right? Now, we likely don't do all of this in a straight line. This may take years to play out. We may catch a really nice pump up here and do something like that, right? And that would be a bummer. But then, like, ultimately, like, we could break out of this, right? So as like a trader, I'm thinking, okay, trade to 17-ish looks good. Trade to 24-ish looks good. Maybe I can hold some to this liquidity here. Maybe this kind of like 35 region. That looks good. Do I want to hold the trade for like a pullback all the way back down? No, I'm going to take profits on the way up. As an investor in my spot portfolio, I'm thinking, oh shit, I should just keep buying Uniswap in this green box here, which it is still very much chilling in. So I think everything sub like 9, I think it will do useful stuff. You believe in some things. I think that Uniswap is like an interesting play. So I own Uniswap. I own Hype. I think Hype is interesting, and I think these like more speculative narratives about like robot and AI micropayments and stuff like that. I think that shit's interesting as well. I think it's much more likely to be, a flash in the pan narrative that maybe retraces the entire move. But shit like Tau and virtuals and Nano and it's stuff like that. Like that's also interesting to position into. And most everything else in crypto that's kind of not in some sort of like it's a company with cash flows, it's like critical infrastructure that has a means of like capturing value. I, I don't know. That stuff's a big question mark to me. So not ready to write off the entire space. I do think I'm probably considering like actually selling down some of my Bitcoin to buy some of these other coins actually. Um, because I think that this all makes sense to me. So yeah, those are kind of my high level rambly thoughts there. Getting back to just talking about alts and like, is this generally a good idea to be buying alts, right? And I don't mean like this morning, like again, like okay, backing up another step, big thing we have to be concerned about this week. Huge thing, right? That is governing everything in the market right now. And until that happens, I think everything you're seeing today, tomorrow, it's just fucking noise, right? NVIDIA earnings, I believe after market close on Wednesday. Got to pay attention to that, right? Because until that happens, I don't think the market wants to go anywhere because why would it? Like that is like a very key thing, right? So what I am generally looking for this week in terms of like a trading plan on this stuff, right? Is like most stuff in the market has been going down, right? And it's sort of like some stuff that's strong kind of like swept last week's low and it put in a low over the weekend, right? These weekend lows often get wiped out during the week, right? So very possible on a lot of this stuff, you put in a Monday range or something that wipes out the weekend low. We chop around before earnings. You get a Monday high, you get a Monday low. What I'm looking for is on some of this stuff is maybe a trigger to get long is some sort of like run of the Monday low. Ideally, there's like a level down here that we're reaching into that we haven't had yet. Back inside the Monday range, NVIDIA stuff is good. And then that. Until all of that takes place, you're just averaging into a downtrend. And I don't think that's all bad. Like I bought a little stuff this weekend. I bought a little Bitcoin this weekend because like I think zooming out, it's an area for a bounce. I am rethinking taking that Bitcoin and putting into something else actually. Probably like maybe like more Uniswap, honestly. Um, so that's fine, but like you don't want to just be like going all in at these areas. Like they're areas of interest. They are theories on how like we might bottom and reverse, and we're looking at some kind of like key potential pivot points, i.e. NVIDIA earnings, and then key points of interest in our charts, i.e. like the Monday range run and reclaim to kind of frame like a bottoming trade idea around, right? And every other week, like I've said, we've basically followed a pattern where we've been downtrending and it's the weekend and then Sunday comes and then Sunday pumps. We form a range on Monday like this. Price fakes out above the Monday high, back inside Monday, and then we go lower. This pattern here has happened multiple weeks in a row. It was interesting to me, potentially interesting, that this week we did the reverse. This week, we were downtrending. Sunday, we dumped. Then the week opened and we reclaimed, and now we're ranging on Monday. So if this week we do the opposite, we put in this Monday range, maybe price comes down at some point this week, takes out the weekend lows, back inside the Monday range. Again, now this is the setup for a potential swing point in the market, a potential reversal, right? Dandel Z, I thought you quit crypto trading. I have retired from trading. Well, I haven't retired. I've taken a sabbatical from trading ultra high leverage, 8-figure crypto positions on like the 15-minute chart because I was going to die. But I'm still very much swing trading crypto and swing trading TradFi stuff on a more zoomed out time frame. And I'm also doing that now because it aligns better with what all of you guys do. I'm trying to create more content now, trying to become content guy. And I think that if I put myself less in the sort of mindset of a scalper constantly, and I can zoom out more and I can chart stuff more on the time frames you guys are trading on and operating on, this is going to be better for you as well as for my mental health, right? The downside is like I can't make as much money because if you're scalping, you could take like 100 trades a week if you want, right? Whereas like it might take like 1 or 2 now. So quantity of trades, but it's easier on the health, right? So yes, I am still trading. No, I am not ultra degen long perp trading. I cashed out the vast majority of that account and I bought a lot of stocks with it, and I feel good and generally indifferent to what happens to crypto because I feel like my crypto allocation is now just a basic normie one instead of having 80% of my net worth in this godforsaken asset. It's way lower now. Man, this week we dumped to then dump more to finally dump even further than dump. Yeah, it's possible. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, right? Okay, so let's talk about how this goes wrong because we've been talking about rosy stuff, right? Where does this go wrong? I think stocks are the main risk point. And I think stocks, there are warning signs here, right? So let's talk about the warning signs for stocks. Main thing to note, I think, on ES is that there's a very, very, very clear bearish divergence here on the 3-day chart, right? Like you can see the higher high, and then you can see on the RSI, there's a pretty classic lower low. It's happening in the oversold region. The awesome oscillator, which is another cool momentum thing, also sequence of lower lows. So all of that it's sus. It's sus. On the bullish side, we're just making a pullback into 3-day trend. There's an order block here, which is being well respected right now. We had this pretty substantial pin bar candle right there. That's pretty bullish. We had every opportunity to kind of break down last week, especially Friday, and put in what I would argue to be like a pretty strong close. So that is kind of the bull bear thing going on. I'm definitely going to get concerned if we lose this low here. If this low breaks at this first low is 66.55. If 65.40 breaks, that is probably really bad, because then all of this structure is likely compromised, and the next level I would look to FA chart. This is bad crypto, right? This is just it just looks like a gigantic head and shoulders that has basically lost support, right? So if stocks die, this shit is going down here. It's going down here, and that is negative 83% more, something like that. So that's your nuclear scenario, and I think you have to have your eyes pretty wide open that is one way that this could definitely go, right? If it doesn't go that way, we could have a rip, right? And that could just be something like Pepe puts in lower high and then it dumps. So that's maybe if we get a 1 to 4 week alt season or something like that, and then there's kind of a local top for Bitcoin. Even if that happens, I still feel pretty strongly that we would pull back to in the spring and then do it all again. I just think the pull of the election and the new Fed chair and all this stuff is too strong. I think if there is some sort of macro catalyst in the plumbing that breaks that causes that sell-off and everything to nuke, I think there's virtually 100% chance that they just roll out some new program with some new anagram, and then they kick the can down the road and everything goes back up again. So I'm not really worried about this stuff literally going to zero or this being a 4-year bear. I'm still thinking even if Bitcoin does break down from here, it might just be a pullback into the 60s that sort of ends in the springtime or something like that. So no need to get turbo depressed, right? Getting back to some of the altcoin charts. Where's my, there we go. It is worth noting that well, this looks freaking terrible, right? Obviously looks bad. The very high time frame structure actually is higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low. Even this is a higher high. So at some point here, I do think a higher low is put in, some sort of kind of pretty major macro higher low. Where might that be? Well, we've got this range here. So we're kind of chilling around the mid-range, but under it. And we've got this kind of major zone here, which has kind of been tapped into, but I would argue not fully mitigated yet. So we've got that going on. This is a pretty interesting area, I think, to look for a bottom. Of course, this is a weekly chart. Sorry, this is a weekly chart. And so this could play out over a while. It could happen this week. I don't know. This could take a little time to transpire, but this is an interesting area. And as for timing wise, I'm pretty interested in the weekly Stoke, right? Which has been pretty good for timing these moves, right? You can kind of see the local bottoms here, local tops, and they correlate pretty well. So this in and of itself isn't a long signal, but with confluence with a lot of other stuff, like it makes things look interesting, right? When the weekly stoke is basically at like all-time levels for total 2, which is basically the all altcoins besides Bitcoin, and you're trading into weekly support, and you're trading into a key moving average, it's a sign that like maybe we should be looking on the lower time frame for something to transpire where we might actually want to be running counter to the herd and counter to the prevailing trend and looking to long. And I think a whole bunch of charts look like this. You can see that others dominance basically the week after October 10th, there was a substantial shift, substantial bottom in the weekly stoke. And if I clean this up a bit, I would say this here is just a big old range, right? So you're buying near range lows here. So yeah, I guess in summary, be a bottom in which Bitcoin like kind of God candles to all-time highs, alter sidelines, and then everything catches up. I think that could potentially be in the form of again, I do think the weekly close was kind of bad on Bitcoin. But again, like we don't dump in a straight line. I think that the monthly open is right here. Like we've basically just kind of dumped straight from that. It's very reasonable to me that we would form a bottom somewhere in here, have a big leg up, maybe even run this high. I think less likely, but you could see him. I could see a move into like 110K or something. This might trap some people, and then this could be like a higher low, and then we could go down. And then this process here, if it happens over the course of a few weeks, could be like a bit of like an altcoin bonanza, something like that. So that's how I'm currently thinking of things at the moment. Again, I'm not freaking out too much about this current price action. I suspect like we run these weekend lows. I suspect we pull back a little bit. Suspect we chop a little bit before NVIDIA, and then NVIDIA is kind of decision time there. Comprende? All right, I'm gonna check the chat to see if you guys have any questions. Has CME gap been filled yet? The gap was like above us actually, so I think probably. I don't know which gap you're talking about. Oh, this gap here. That's actually an interesting gap. So, yeah, there's some hopium for you. Forgot about the 92K CME gap. So, interesting to see if we bounce there. I feel like this is like a very, 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 very high probability bounce area. Like there is a lot of confluence here for a bounce. You've got the mid-range, the zone, you've got the CME gap, you've got like this whole little demand area liquidated. You are just getting into very oversold levels on the RSI here, right? 4 hour is just super down. Like I know it feels like very, very, very bad, but like this isn't like a place I would be selling if nothing else. And yeah, I do still think like zoomed out somewhere in this area, I think there is a bounce. But as I said, the weekly close really raises my bar for what we would have to do to go back to new all-time highs. Man 9301. You want to know about Sauce USD? What the frig is Sauce? Saucer swap. What the heck is saucer swap? What are you seeing here? What am I missing? This looks not like something I would be dying to buy at the moment. Somebody else is asking about MSTR Sailor. Can we chart Sailor's buys, please? He's the reason for why we are here. I don't know that Sailor is the reason why we are here, to be honest. I think there was some front running of Sailor and some capital moving in anticipation of Sailor. Like I don't know that Sailor himself is like literally holding up the Bitcoin market. So I don't know. I think it is worth looking at MSTR. I think if you're talking about like a sustainable bottom for Bitcoin, I mean, MSTR is almost certainly, going here. Could there be a bottom there? Yeah, at least like a pretty good bounce. So definitely worth noting. Again, this is kind of like one of those like headwinds to Bitcoin that I don't know if it has to translate into all these other alts we talked about. Dandel says, do you think that since the ETFs, we have had bad price action on alts because people no longer rotate on-chain money onto the lower cap coins? Look, I think that the bad price action on alts is nothing like I don't have like a unique thesis on this. Like I think the things that people have said are largely correct. I don't know that it's because there's capital trapped in ETFs that can't rotate. I think that most of crypto is basically just a giant game of poker, right? I used to play poker professionally. And in the early days, there were a lot of fish at the table, right? And it was like free money, and people didn't really understand the rules of the game, and you can make a lot of money, and everything was chill. But then over time, the pros in the game, the big players, they started developing like more and more advanced strategies to sort of like beat the game, and they started using software and all sorts of tools that were like out of the reach of the casual player. And the players over time just get kind of shredded, and they perceive the game as unfair, and they stopped coming back, and then the people in the game just started eating themselves. And it's largely been the same thing with crypto. Like this was like a big casino thing. We created ICOs, and those kind of got like run into the ground. And then we did the VC coin thing, and then the market realized and acclimated to the idea that the VC high float thing was like just another way to kind of shred retail, and people lost money there and acclimated to that. And then we did meme coins as a reaction to that, but then everybody started gaming and scamming meme coins in the same way that everything else gets scammed. And now there's just a combination of not enough money left that hasn't been shredded. There's just been so much money extracted from the system. Like you just look at like Pump Fund by itself, like the amount of money that project has extracted is biblical. So there's been no reason for like new money to come into crypto, and like the gambling hasn't stopped. Like you've just seen it move over to TradFi. People are gambling on like low cap AI stocks that are going to the freaking moon. And it's like, why would you play the altcoin game with like the weird shadiness when you could like buy like a legit company in TradFi land, you know? So I think that's that with alts. But like I am hopeful that these actual projects that make actual money are a reason for money to come back into the space, and then that money does flow into other things that are related, or you can speculate on a new project that may blossom into that, or we still I don't think have really started playing out any of the ETF narratives yet, because there's not any interest really in anything other than Bitcoin, maybe ETH in the ETF world. So like it's not like launching a bunch of DeFi ETFs is even going to be bullish right now. But like if capital starts realizing like there's something here and buying the coins, and the coins go up, and then we get an ETF kind of push in these assets, that could be very, very interesting. But that is probably not a story for this week or next week or next month, Let me just see if anybody else has any other burning questions here. Did we look at Zcash? No, I haven't looked at Zcash yet. Zcash is wild, bro. I picked a bad time to stop, trading the short duration perps, because this has been a great coin to trade on just kind of lower time frame momentum moves. Actually, haven't looked at this chart this week. Momentum on it is just insane. There are some early warning signs here. Obviously, this is a bear div on the 3-day. I don't know that I would be like going max all in for like a long-term trade on this. I think it's kind of interesting to own as like a Bitcoin hedge. That was kind of the original narrative. Like I feel like if you've got like $100,000 of Bitcoin, like you probably should own at least like $1,000 or $2,000 of Zcash, right? Just from that perspective. If you're trading this, I mean, trying to think if I see anything as far as trading setups here go this week. I don't know. Like this looks like a little bit worrisome to me. Like here's the zone that put in the high, right? We put in a little bit of a double top here, and then price comes back, tags the mid-range of this zone, and we attempt to put in a new high. But right now, this looks kind of distributive above this range high. And that would make this low a weak low, failure to put in a new high. Prices already come back down to tag this, so like it doesn't necessarily need to come back down here again. So I would worry about this being like a double top here, and I would actually worry about this trading down maybe to here. That'd be a huge dump, huh? But like no, I don't like longing like right now. This looks like more of a short setup than anything to me. I don't know if I would short it. Momentum's been kind of insane, but yeah, I don't like it here. It ain't for me. trying to think where this might get interesting again. Yeah, I mean, that area I highlighted is a weekly order block. So if there is a pretty bad pullback, it'd be an interesting place to look for a long. But again, that's a long ways down. That's like 60% down, which feels implausible as I say that, but I don't know. It's crypto. Who the frig knows? So yeah, I don't know. If I were long this right now, I would be shaving some profits for sure. Could it go higher? Yeah, absolutely. I mean, like if I zoom out, it's just a bunch of bullish weekly candles. So I don't want to fight this momentum. I just, like I said, on the short, the lower time frame, I don't love the setup. It could go up. Anything's possible, but high probability long, no, not for me. You're welcome, Kobe. You're welcome. All right, guys. Well, I think I've dumped enough of my thoughts out there. Probably make a video or two this week to update on things. Like I said, don't full port ape into alts. Like we're looking for opportunities like in this area. I think it's reasonable to think that there might be a little bull mover on the corner, but we're still knife catching right now. We still got Nvidia earnings. Bitcoin still needs to stop being a fucking cuck. And until that happens, like, yeah, everything still looks probably a little bleak, but hopefully Nvidia smashes. Hopefully stocks hold. Again, if stocks like lose those levels, God, I mean, that is probably going to be one of these BTFP kind of events where there's like this just mega short-term explosion in markets that's met with like government intervention. And then we like buy that with both fists, probably. So that would be my kind of baseline thing right now. Expecting continuation in equities. I do see warning signs there, but I'm assuming upside continuation until proven otherwise. If that doesn't pan out, yeah, like hedge equities, short crypto altcoins like Pepe, like I pointed out, are kind of just like absolutely turbo nuke. There's probably something wrong with the plumbing. There's probably like an 8-9% pullback in stocks, and that's probably met with some sort of government intervention because the Trump admin is not going to let the entire stock market crash heading into midterms next year. It's just not going to happen. They will let your altcoins go down in the short term here, but like I don't think they're going to stand for like a sustained equities bear market. And I do think equities bear markets at this point are still largely a choice. I do still think we can just kind of print our way out of them in nominal terms and number go up on screen. Although that is going to catch up to us and explode all of society at some point, but that's probably a conversation for another day. Marty, I am going back to the East Coast for Thanksgiving. Thank you for asking. I will not be in Iowa. Sorry. I'm sure it'll be lovely though. All right, guys. Thanks for joining the stream. Really appreciate it. As always, please like, subscribe, all the things. Oh, I totally forgot. By the way, I started a Substack. I'm going to start publishing some free content there for the people who like to read. I would love for one of you to be my first subscriber. magiclines.substack.com. I should have announced that at the beginning of the video before everybody left the freaking video, but I'm bad at content creation and self-promotion, so fuck my life. But yeah, check that out. As always, check out the Discord, follow me on X, all the things. Trying to make more content these days. Thanks, guys, for joining. Be back with you next Monday. Be dripping out some videos this week. Good luck in the markets there. Have a good one.